The rain fell in heavy sheets as Marcus Johnson walked home from the VA hospital, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, their glow fractured by the downpour. He adjusted the collar of his jacket, the fabric still damp from the afternoon storm. Marcus had just finished his weekly therapy session. Another hour of unpacking the things he'd seen overseas, another hour of trying to stitch himself back together. The counselor had told him to take the long way home tonight. "Clear your head," she'd said. He never expected it would cost him his freedom. A scream cut through the night. Marcus froze. It came from the alley beside Murphy's diner, a sharp, panicked cry. Instinct kicked in. He dropped his bag and ran toward the sound. When he rounded the corner, he saw her, a young white woman, her blonde hair plastered to her face from the rain. She was backed against the brick wall, her hands raised as if to ward off an attacker. But there was no one else there. "Are you okay?" Marcus called out. She turned toward him, her eyes wide with fear. Then, without warning, she screamed again, louder this time. "Stay away from me!" she shrieked. "Don't touch me!" Marcus took a step back, confused. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to help." The sound of sirens cut him off. Red and blue lights flooded the alley as two police cruisers skidded to a stop at the curb. "Hands where we can see them," an officer barked. Marcus complied immediately, raising his palms in the air. He knew the drill. He'd served his country. He knew how to follow orders. But then the woman pointed at him, her voice trembling. "That's him," she said. "He tried to hurt me." The officer's grip tightened on Marcus's arm as he was shoved against the patrol car. "You have the right to remain silent," the cop recited, his breath hot against Marcus's ear. As the cuffs clicked shut, Marcus turned his head, catching one last glimpse of the woman. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling. The system closes an asterisk asterisk. The interrogation room smelled like stale coffee and sweat. The fluorescent light flickered above Marcus, casting jagged shadows across the metal table. His wrists ached where the cuffs had dug into his skin. Across from him, Detective Carson flipped through a file, his expression unreadable. A second detective, younger, with a close-cropped beard, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You understand how this looks, right?" Carson said finally, tossing a crime scene photo onto the table. The woman, Emily Whitaker, according to the file, looked back at Marcus with tear-streaked makeup. "White woman. Dark alley. Big guy like you." Marcus kept his voice steady. "I was trying to help her." Carson smirked. "Funny. She says you had your hands around her throat. That's not what happened. Then tell us what did happen." Marcus took a breath. "I was walking home from my VA appointment. I heard screaming. I went to help. When I got there, she was alone, just standing there. Then she started yelling at me to stay away." The younger detective pushed off the wall. "So you're saying this woman, this victim, just decided to frame you for no reason? I don't know why she did it. But I didn't touch her." Carson sighed, rubbing his temples like Marcus was giving him a headache. "Here's the problem, Johnson. You've got no witnesses. She's got a bruised neck and your description. And let's be real, a jury's going to take one look at you and see exactly what she sees." Marcus clenched his jaw. "I was at the VA. Check the sign-in sheet. Dr. Ruiz can vouch for me." Carson exchanged a glance with his partner. "We did. Problem is, your appointment ended at 7:30. This happened at 8:15. Plenty of time for you to take a detour." "That's not." "Save it for the DA," Carson interrupted, standing. "He loves cases like this, especially with the election coming up." As the door slammed shut, Marcus stared at his reflection in the one-way glass. He'd survived 2 tours overseas. Now he wondered if he'd survive this. The courtroom smelled like lemon polish and stale anxiety. Marcus sat stiffly between his public defender, Aaron Leibovitz, and a bailiff who kept sighing like he'd rather be anywhere else. The wooden bench dug into Marcus's back as he scanned the jury, 11 white faces, 1 black woman who hadn't met his eyes all week. "Prosecution calls Emily Whitaker," the gallery murmured as Emily walked to the stand, her pale blue dress perfectly pressed. She dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue as ADA Richard Cole approached, his tailored suit costing more than Marcus made in a month. "Ms. Whitaker," Cole began, voice using sympathy, "can you describe the terror you felt when this man attacked you?" Aaron didn't object. He hadn't objected once all trial. Emily's breath hitched dramatically. I was cutting through the alley to get to my car. Suddenly he was there, his hands. She demonstrated with trembling fingers. Like a vice around my throat. I thought I was going to die. Marcus's stomach turned. Across the aisle, Cole's junior prosecutor smirked as he passed a note to a reporter. Your witness, Cole said, patting Emily's shoulder. Aaron stood slowly, flipping through notes. Ms. Whitaker, you claim the attack occurred at 8:15 p.m.? Yes. And you're certain it was my client? Absolutely. Aaron hesitated. Marcus nudged him. The gas station security tape they'd subpoenaed was timestamped 8:23, showing Marcus buying gum. But Aaron just cleared his throat. No further questions. The closing arguments were worse. Cole held up Marcus's army discharge photo. A trained killer, he called him. The jury stared at Marcus like he'd grown horns. Deliberations took 89 minutes. Guilty. Emily's smile as the judge sentenced Marcus to 15 years was the last thing he saw before the bailiff snapped the cuffs back on. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets overhead, never turning off, never allowing true darkness. Marcus sat on the edge of his bunk, methodically counting the cracks in the cinderblock wall, his nightly ritual. 137 today. One more than yesterday. The prison's settling bones kept creating new fractures. A cockroach skittered across the floor. Marcus watched it disappear under the toilet, envying its freedom. 3 years. 3 years since the jury took 89 minutes to erase his life. 3 years since he'd seen real moonlight instead of the sickly yellow glow of the prison yard lamps. The cell door clanged open. Shower time, Johnson. C.O. Haskins drawled, his meaty fingers tapping his baton. The man's forearm bore a Confederate flag tattoo that he made sure every black inmate saw. Marcus stood slowly, keeping his movements predictable. He'd learned that lesson in month 2, when an accidental elbow to the ribs had cracked 2 bones. The shower room tiles were slick with something Marcus tried not to identify. The water alternated between scalding and freezing, another game the guards liked to play. As the rusty pipes groaned, Marcus heard the distinct click of the lock engaging. Forgot my watch, Haskins chuckled through the door. Be back in 20. The water turned ice cold. Marcus clenched his jaw, counting the seconds. Exactly 18 minutes later, the water cut off completely. He stood shivering in the dark, his fingers pruning, until the door finally creaked open. Oops, Haskins said, grinning. Lost track of time. Back in his cell, Marcus unfolded his sister's latest letter, the first one to make it through in months. The edges were torn, clearly inspected. Marcus, asterisk still fighting. Found a lawyer who believes us. Jamila Carter from the Innocence Project. She says asterisk. The rest was blacked out by the censor. Marcus tucked the letter under his thin mattress, just as footsteps approached. Not the usual guard shuffle, lighter, purposeful. Marcus Johnson. A woman stood at his bars. Early 30s, dark skin, sharp suit. Her ID badge read Jamila Carter. ESQ. The guards behind her looked furious. I need 5 minutes with my client, she said, not asking. When the cell door closed behind her, Jamila didn't waste words. She pulled a tablet from her briefcase, the screen glowing in the dim cell. Gas station security footage, she said, pressing play. There Marcus was, clear as day, buying gum at 8:23 p.m., 8 minutes after Emily claimed he was attacking her. The timestamp blinked relentlessly in the corner. But the subpoena, Marcus's voice cracked from disuse, was lost. Jamila's mouth twisted. Just like these. She swiped to another file, photos of Emily Whitaker and ADA Richard Cole laughing at a cocktail party. They've been together since law school. This was all a game to them. Marcus's hands trembled. He hadn't allowed himself to hope in years. Jamila leaned closer. Here's what happens next. We file for immediate review. The DA's already sweating. They found 3 other cases where Cole buried evidence. But I need you to stay strong a little longer. Outside, Haskins banged on the bars. Time's up. As Jamila stood, she slipped something into Marcus's hand. A chocolate bar, the kind his sister used to buy him. The small act of kindness burned hotter than any shower scalding. When the cell door clanged shut again, Marcus unwrapped the chocolate slowly, savoring the first sweet thing he'd tasted in years. For the first time since the arrest, he dreamed of sunlight. The prison transport van rumbled through downtown, its barred windows offering Marcus fractured glimpses of a world he hadn't touched in 1,097 days. The courthouse steps swarmed with reporters, their cameras flashing like artillery fire through the tinted glass. Marcus instinctively straightened his tie, the same navy blue one his sister had brought to his sentencing, before remembering it didn't matter anymore. The orange jumpsuit underneath his borrowed suit jacket told the real story. The moment the van doors opened, the shouting began. Marcus, did you ever lose hope? How does it feel knowing they set you up? U.S. Marshals formed a human barricade as they led him inside, their hands hovering near their weapons. The courtroom smelled the same, lemon polish and desperation, but this time the energy crackled differently. ADA Richard Cole sat at the prosecution table, his tailored suit now wrinkled, his fingernails bitten raw. Emily Whitaker clutched a tissue in the front row, her perfect blonde hair fraying at the edges. Judge Wilkins took the bench, her black robes swirling like storm clouds. This court is now in session for the matter of State versus Marcus Johnson. Her voice carried a tremor Marcus had never heard before. Counsel! Jamila stood, her heels clicking like a metronome counting down Cole's career. Your Honor, we move to vacate Mr. Johnson's conviction based on new evidence of prosecutorial misconduct and actual innocence. She gestured to the projector. The defense submits Exhibit A. The screen lit up with security footage Marcus had seen only once before. There he was, plain as day, dropping coins into a vending machine at 8:23 p.m. Jamila froze the frame. Note the timestamp. Ms. Whitaker claimed the assault occurred at 8:15, yet here's Mr. Johnson 12 blocks away, just 8 minutes later. A murmur swept through the gallery. Exhibit B. Jamila advanced the slides. Party photos of Cole and Emily wrapped around each other at a law school reunion. Text messages where Emily wrote, asterisk, if we say it was a black guy, they'll believe us. Asterisk. Cole, shut up. Objection. Those texts are authentic. Jamila cut in. As confirmed by your own phone records, which the AG's office subpoenaed after you suddenly took medical leave. She turned back to the judge. This wasn't just a wrongful conviction. It was a hate crime orchestrated by officers of the court. The gallery erupted. Judge Wilkins' gavel cracked like gunshots. When silence returned, the judge removed her glasses. Mr. Cole, before I rule, do you have anything to say for yourself? Cole's mouth worked soundlessly. Then, shockingly, he pointed at Emily. She made me do it. Said she'd ruin my campaign if I didn't help her. Emily's shriek pierced the room. You lying bastard. You're the one who said. Enough! Judge Wilkins roared. She fixed Marcus with watery eyes. Mr. Johnson, on behalf of this court, I apologize. The words landed like bricks. Your conviction is vacated. All charges dismissed with prejudice. The marshals moved first, not toward Marcus, but toward Cole, snapping cuffs on his wrists. Richard Cole, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and civil rights violations. As they led Cole away, Marcus finally exhaled. The weight he'd carried since that rainy night didn't vanish, it just changed shape. Jamila squeezed his shoulder. Ready to go home? Outside, the sunlight hit Marcus' face like a physical force. His sister stood at the bottom of the steps, holding 2 cups of their grandma's sweet tea. The press swarmed, but for once, Marcus didn't flinch at the cameras. He took the tea, letting the ice cubes clink like a toast. Somewhere, a clock tower chimed noon. For the first time in years, Marcus Johnson was right on time.